I mean, this should work great. This should be perfect. I don't think there should be any flaws with anything that I have set up right now. There is a delay on stream, so if what I say we'll eventually get. Um, but welcome everybody. Um, it is indeed the Anime Affray podcast, but this time it's not Save or Slay. Give me a second. That'll do a little better for the lighting, just so it's not super dark on this side. Not that I should be over there at all ever at my computer. But welcome. This is our first stream on YouTube. Real happy to be doing this. It means that I don't have to suffer at moving VODs over.
Right.
And that's basically it. Also, this seems to be going. It seems to be going well. Things seem fine.
It,
Usually,
it's
uh,
good.
usually we are joined by two other co-hosts, who you got to see on the Lovely Wait screen, John and Michael. Uh, but they don't need to be here for this. Michael because I don't know if he's awake, and John because he didn't do this, so he doesn't get to talk about it. But usually we sit down, we pick 12 shows from the newly airing season of anime, and we watch them week by week in a gauntlet-like fashion, voting out whatever the worst show is, whether we all agree on it or not. And that's what we do on Save or Slay, which we will be
We,
starting back up in a couple, 2-3 weeks. We should be picking shows tonight, so we should be live again for that. It should not be
yep.
too late. We want to get it done before 8:30. So I would imagine like
We will continue our.
6 o'clock maybe.
I would imagine so. We will continue doing our weekly season of Weeb Survivor.
Exactly, yeah. It'll be great. You can check that out. I have some other stuff kind of in the works, but today we're going to talk about RWBY, and it is myself and my co-host Mason. Hi, Mason.
Ah,
How you
how's it
doing?
going? I'm doing all right. I
We
got woken up like 2 hours before I was expecting to because I forgot we were getting new windows installed in the
mhm.
house today. But
They look great. They look wonderful from all the windows in
yes,
our no,
I'm
but
sure the windows that you can absolutely see, including the only one that is in my room that is behind my computer.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, I'm doing good. Literally just woke up a little bit ago.
Okay.
Because that's how that works. We totally did not just talk to each other last night and do anime quizzes on Sporkle. That was definitely
Yeah,
not a thing we
definitely
did.
not what happened at all. We promise.
And while I have stuff that I've done that I could talk about, I don't want to do that here. We're here to talk about RWBY. As the description of the video says, Mason, you didn't want to get in the RWBY. You were hesitant, and I don't blame you.
Yeah. So I had back when Ruby was hit. I think it had just finished season 3 or volume 3. A couple of my friends had been watching it, and they're like, "No, man, you got to check it out. Like, it's really good." And I attempted to watch volume 1, and I got halfway through it, I think, and
Hard
I
to
was like,
say.
I can't do it because this was back in like 2015 or something or earlier. Like
Yeah.
it was a while back, and it was just one of those things where it's just like I was still like I had been watching anime for a while, but it was still like I was all like it was still early on in my anime career, and like watching that just wow, does the first I'm not gonna lie, the first 2 seasons do not look great. You definitely get used to them as you watch it, but like it's pretty rough to start off with.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
but
I go ahead first. Yeah.
I was just gonna say we had Ruby Ice Queendom on the podcast, and I was enjoying a good amount of it, and I was interested with all the things that Michael and Sean were saying, like, oh, that's interesting that they did that now. Um,
It's weird that we're through the first volume before the end of the third episode, huh?
yeah,
Strange.
weird, but yeah, I was like, you know what, I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've wanted to go back and check it out, so I was like, you know what, fuck it. By the way, spoilers and harsh language are coming up, in
Yeah.
case you didn't know. Um, I just kind of said, "Fuck it, I'll watch it." Like, and then after an episode of podcast one night, I just threw on the complete volume one video and just threw it on for the boys in the podcast server, and we watched it together. And after that, I was like, you know what, this isn't bad. Let's watch more.
You know what's incredible? I think you timed the first actual swear word after the 5 minute mark. So if we were making money off this baby, we're clean.
Yeah.
No, but for reference on it, I have seen, as is Michael. As Mason mentioned, when we watched Ice Queendom, we were the two who had prior RWBY knowledge, which normally isn't a thing that has to pop up for a show on the podcast. But this was an exception because Ice Queendom was like a retelling and not like a
Yeah.
spin-off or a sequel. But Michael and I have both seen through Volume 7. Please, as Jack comes in, I'll make, if Jack comes in, whatever. But I'll make it clear, no spoilers past Volume 3. You will be banned, and I do not feel bad about it. But I have seen up through Volume 7. Michael's also seen up through Volume 7, though he has very little memory of Volume 2, which is part of the reason why he didn't really feel like he would fit this conversation. But yeah, we sat down, all the boys. Well, I don't know how much John was there for. But Michael, me, and Mason, we watched through first volume in a night, or almost in the whole. I think it was the whole night. We knocked that one off.
Night. It was only like half an hour or something like that.
Yeah. I think it might have just been an hour, but I mean, it
No,
feels like half an hour when you go through it.
Yeah, it's not like it's enjoyable, but it's not that much.
Yeah. But brain. And then I think you and I did Volume 2. Michael might have hopped in for a bit of it, the later half, and then it was I think it was just you and I for Volume 3.
Michael hopped in for a tiny bit of Volume 3, but had to leave.
Yeah. And I will say that as much as there is contention and debate in the RWBY fandom about how good RWBY is, especially post Volume 3, there's definitely a lot of things to like, and I'm someone who, you get through 3 volumes, and then you get through 2 more, and then you think Volume 6 is really good. It's kind of hard to stop yourself from going along with the train by that point. You're on the ride. You might as well see where it goes. And I'm real happy you've been enjoying volumes 1 to 3, and I'm excited to hear you talk about stuff about it. And that's what this podcast is for. And like Mason says, spoilers for volume 1 to 3. That's that's gonna happen. That's nothing we can do about that. So where do you want to start? What do you want to talk about?
So I mean, I'd like to give just my general thoughts on it. So, as I mentioned before, RWBY Ice Queendom was kind of like my real introduction to RWBY because I had not watched much of original RWBY before. So Ice Queendom is very interesting in that it looks pretty for some portions of it, but it goes, we're going to speed run the first volume, and then everything after that is essentially new content. And it's interesting because after watching volumes 1 through 3, I realized, wow, do they miss a lot. For one, I think one of the best portions of RWBY, hold on. Excuse me. One of the main real selling points to RWBY is the characters in that show are wonderful. They do such a good job with any character that you might have an issue with. They show why they are the way that they are. They do a very good job of showing the relationships between characters and how they got to the point where they're at. And also just genuinely the dialogue in that show is original RWBY is kind of incredible. It's really funny, the characters are enjoyable. The fights, while don't get me wrong, it does look like a bad PS2 game at points, at least for the first two volumes, some of the fights are really sick. Like, Monty really knew how to use the program they were using.
Yeah.
Um, I will just, I will always just love Sun Wukong, Sun's introduction of fighting. I believe it was Torchwick at
Yep.
that point. Yeah, he's fighting Torchwick, and just the gunchucks, like when they first get introduced, is wild.
So
It's such a
great.
cool scene.
I
Like, even if it doesn't look great, it's really cool.
I love that that Rooster Teeth and the RWBY team as a whole kind of like the term everything's a gun kind of came out of RWBY for a reason. But I think even if you know that going into it, you're not ready for the ways in which things are guns.
Yeah, you really are not.
With the exception of John. John doesn't get a gun. He doesn't need one. He's a
No.
soldier and a good boy. You let him wield that sword and shield.
Exactly.
No, I agree basically with everything you said. Ice Queendom's funny because it really does miss some of the really small character stuff. But I like some of the things it adds, but we're not here to talk about that. I will let you know, I've seen the clip float around YouTube. They do at some point after they get out of the arc that we were stuck in for 6 episodes, if not more. They do eventually get to the food fight scene. I know that happens.
Oh my god.
They probably put budget into that for some reason. I mean, they should.
Wild.
But, I mean,
They should,
I haven't watched it, but it looked like it was going to be pretty budgeted, so that's good.
I mean, the food fight scene's incredible in original RWBY, so I can't imagine it would be bad if they just scaled it up a bit.
Yeah, I don't think I was there when you watched the first 2 or 3 episodes of Volume 2, so I didn't see your reaction to it, but I know you really liked it because you were talking about it in chat, and that was how I was like, oh, I should get in there and watch it with him, because he's talking about the food fight scene. It's a fun scene.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Also, another thing that I wasn't expecting was, wow, does this show take a pretty hard right turn at points where, like, yeah, it's fun, happy, like, myth, like, basically it's a shonen.
Yep.
With 4 female main characters, but it's a shonen in terms of how it works. But then you just get points where it just goes real in on the, like, it has some horror bits to it occasionally, not very often, but it also has just, like, really brutal moments to it of, like, character interactions and, like, how things that the characters do affect the world, and, like,
yeah,
it's good. It was not what I was expecting, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I think the first thing that, like, pops into my mind that's like that, like, you have like some general stuff like with Weiss and Blake that I think, you know, kind of starts to jump into that, but I think the scene I really think about for the first time where, like, you have that emotional weight, that kind of, like, really shifts the tone of the show to me, is either something in John and Pyrrha, because that set of John's arc with Carden is really good.
Yeah.
But for sure the scene where Yang tries to comfort Blake after she's stressing out over the White Fang.
Yeah.
And she tells the story about her and RWBY in the cold, and they shift the animation style for it, and just that whole scene's incredibly well done.
Good.
And then of course that builds to the end of Volume 3, but
yeah. You also just reminded me. The show also does a really good job of not forgetting bits.
Yeah.
Like, it does a good job of, like, not overdoing any, like, comedy bits, but also using those comedic bits to then be main portions of later, like, plot relevant things. The main thing that I'm thinking of, at least, is early on, and I think season 1 actually, they make a note of saying, oh yeah, you can program a locker to fly wherever you want it to. And so Carden uses it to fuck with John a lot and, like shove him in a locker and then send him off to Timbuktu.
Yep.
And then later they use this as, like, a way to fight Grimm, and it's awesome.
And then they stab you with it by shoving John in a locker again.
Yeah. and then they stab you with it by shoving John in the locker again, and you cry.
God, his voice actor does such a good job. I mean, I think he's one of the voices the whole way through that sounds great.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this voice cast sounds really phenomenal the whole way through. I think Blake's warms up to the role.
Yeah,
At first
Blake,
it's a little, eh.
yeah, it's a little stiff, but
Yeah,
after season one, you can tell she really kind of comes into
yeah.
herself when it comes to the role.
And I think John's voice actor kills it the whole way through. And obviously, I mean, we can't not talk about Ruby's voice actor. She is
Ruby's incredible.
a delight. It was so refreshing to go from Ice Queendom, where there were some elements of her personality that were there, like her interest in weaponry and stuff like that, but just the amount of bits you lose in an adaptation from the original is so sad because there's so many
really
good bits.
Is.
There's such
because there's so many good ones.
I know we love the combat skirt bit. Anything with Ruby and Weiss is honestly a joy. They are a really great duo.
That was one of the things that I was like, after watching original RWBY, I was mad about in Ice Queendom because they don't ever, like, granted, this whole bit, like, new bit takes place before they actually, like, warm up to one another.
Yeah.
Haha, warming the Ice Queen. But like, the end of season 1 and like all of season 2, Ruby and Weiss have this wonderful relationship of like cat and sisters almost, where they definitely care about one another and they have their moments where they agree with one another, but they also fight a lot, and it's really good how they do it.
I'm gonna bring up this talking point because we'd like to joke about it. How do you feel about Yang in volumes 1 to 3?
I love Yang. I'm ready for her to do more.
Yeah.
But like, wow,
hey,
she actually did stuff.
She did stuff. That's an upgrade from where you came from.
Yeah, because a Ice Queendom, I think she's punched something once.
This sounds about right, and it's stuff that you saw her punch in the original too.
In the original,
it's the first like major fight. Yeah. No, I will say something I really like about RWBY that is going to play well into the future is that, you come into this show and obviously you know who your 4 main characters are, but it does a really phenomenal job of building, I would say John and Pyrrha, I wouldn't say Ren and Nora yet, but John and Pyrrha essentially feel like they're also main characters. They don't really feel like side characters, like characters like Penny and Sun and Neptune and Red and Nora do feel like side characters because you don't get as much from them, but they're still important.
Like they're definitely important, but you're not like going into what their reasons are for being hunters. Like you don't get why they're the way that they are just quite yet. You get a little tiny bit with Ren and Nora, but not really.
Yep.
But like overall, they definitely do feel like side characters, versus John and Pyrrha do feel like, while yes, they're part of the secondary group, they do still feel like they are a central part of the story.
And it makes sense when you get to the end of Volume 3 and you realize, oh, Pyrrha's really important.
Yeah, she's like one of the most important characters in the show up to that point. Yeah. Turns out.
So I mean that's let's talk about the big, kind of one of the big elements of RWBY. You start, it's a girls are going to a combat school to get ready to fight these creatures of Grimm. And the through line for volumes 1 to 3 is that you're following Torchwick, and members of the White Fang who are working under him. For some reason, the show, I love that bit where Blake's just so mad. She's like, "Why are you working under him?" And he's like, "You just don't understand. I got the biz under wraps." I love Torchwick.
I'm just that good.
Yeah,
I'm just that good.
But I mean, so you have the team investigating the White Fang and Torchwick and what they're up to, and then you escalate to the introduction of the concept of the maidens and kind of Ozpin's inner court. And how there's this much bigger dynamic going on. How'd you wind up feeling about that?
I enjoyed it because it was one of those things where I felt like, okay, this is the kind of show that it does follow the shonen structure very well, where it's like, okay, here's our main, like, here's how we start off. But like, we're gonna introduce a new concept that is gonna be the main plot line going forward, and it's gonna go through to the end of the show. Most likely, I would imagine. I would imagine that's kind of what's gonna happen from volumes 4 onward. But um, like, we have to introduce you to this, like, to the world, how it works, all of that stuff, and then we'll get into the actual main plot.
Mhm.
Um, and I like how they did it because they do it piece by piece in
Yep.
how they actually end up handling it.
It
And it's
it's
nice because it lets you think about it and try and figure out, like, oh, why are they introducing this concept? Like,
yeah.
I wonder what that's going to relate to.
And they do a really good job with how they open up the world. Because you have the Vital Festival as a tournament arc to introduce the fact of here are the other academies, here is
Mhm.
Ironwood. You're starting to get a glimpse of what life's like outside of Vale. Um,
Yeah.
which I mean, it for reference, we also did watch the World of Remnants that follow up through Volume 3. At the appropriate time where Crunchyroll slots them, and none of them seemed out of place to me. They all seemed like they were in the right spot.
Yeah. Crunchyroll did a very good job with that, I can tell,
And I and
as
I,
far as I can see.
Yeah, and I've talked about it briefly. I think the World of Remnants are really neat. I think some of it is stuff that should have been in the original content, but you know what? It's cool that they did it. It's cool that they
Yeah.
did it. They at least gave you it at some point, and it just adds to some clarification on some stuff that you don't really get full explanations of as in depth. Um,
Um, I'm not going to lie. I still don't really understand semblances. I think they're neat. I don't get them. I don't
mhm.
understand how, like, they work really, but like, here we are. It's fine.
They're an extension of aura, I believe, is how the show says it at that point. I don't remember like, the exact way they worded it, but the idea with semblance is that people unlock them. Everybody's is unique.
Mhm.
Um, which is to say, the only example of a hereditary semblance we have is the Shinee family.
Yeah.
And even then, like I remember when I was watching RWBY, there was arguments about, you know, are the the runes and are the sigil and glyphs that Weiss does part of her semblance, or is it just a thing she can do? Um, but I mean, the creature summoning with the glyphs that you start to get introduced as like the big element of the semblance,
Mhm.
also involves those glyphs. So like to me, it's
Yeah.
both. You get both. Um,
Yeah.
but the core of it seems to be the summoning because that's the thing that Winter can do as well that we see
Mhm.
briefly.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, also, unique is a relative term, by the way, because of the fact that while every one of them does function slightly differently, we do have at this point in the show at least three that create clones.
and at
So,
least three that involve something hitting you and powering you up,
yes.
like at you, Nora, Adam,
Look,
and Yang.
and Yang.
And
Oh,
there's
I
just a
forgot
couple.
about Adams too.
Yeah, well, you don't get to see it a lot, and they haven't outright said it. But I mean,
Okay.
that's why his sword glows when because he takes it into the sword and then he dishes it back. It's
Yeah.
a really cool. I love the parallel between him and Yang in that regard. And then Nora just exists with lightning. Uh,
Yeah. She's just Thor.
yeah, but I mean, and there's also a lot of speed abilities we've seen. I mean, like, and it makes sense. You only have so much you can reasonably do for a while, and that means that you get to have some creative things as you go. So like you get to have Emerald, whose semblance is one of the most important ones in the fucking season, because without her, the entire enemy plot can't exist, or
Yeah.
can't happen the way they do it. Um,
Yep.
God, she's insane. And then you have Pyrrhus, who's by far the coolest, and then they also stab
Yeah.
you with it, because of course they do.
Yeah, of course. But like, it's cool that how they do, like, revealing the semblances as well,
Yeah,
because they give you all of the information to actually figure it out yourself,
yeah,
but they don't outright tell you originally until they do.
yeah,
Unless it's very specifically one of the ones where it's like, no, we kind of need to tell you how it works right
yeah.
when it happens.
I know they don't tell you Pyrrha's right away, but Pyrrha eventually, during the arc with John and Carter, eventually just tells the girls. She's like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's polarity. Um,
yeah.
which leads to one of my favorite the Ruby, that conversation with Ruby and Weiss is phenomenal. Where Ruby's like, polar, like you control pole, and Weiss is like, no,
No,
magnetism, dummy.
yeah.
What
No,
what
she
are
controls
you?
magnets, you idiot.
That bit's I love that bit so much. They're such a
It's
joy.
so good.
What else do you want to talk about?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's been a minute since we
Mm-hmm.
watched it, so I'm like blanking a bit on everything.
Yeah.
But like, no, I don't know. Like, I really enjoy how the show moves forward with like it doesn't rush into it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I've enjoyed the most is it takes like season one is all about like here's our main group. Let's introduce them and their problems and how they work through them.
Yep.
And then we have season two, which is like, here, let's introduce some more characters. We introduced a few at the end, but like we're gonna kind of flesh them out,
Yep.
and we're gonna introduce like the idea of the world as a whole. And then season three or volume three, which
Is
is
the
just
plot.
stab.
Yeah. But also tournament arc, and there's a lot of cool fights. Which I mean leads me to one of my questions. What would you? I'm gonna be nice, and I'm not gonna say you don't. I'm not gonna make you have to single a favorite out right away. What would you say probably top 3 fights for you from the first 3 volumes?
God, I have to remember them.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like the dockyard fight
That's good.
just because I think Sun is cool as hell. Um, I'm I'm blanking on the fights because there's the dockyard fight.
Every tournament
There's
fight.
there's all the tournament fights. There's the fight that Cinder and Ruby have in the tower. Um, I think Crow versus Winter was great.
Yeah, for the bit you get of it.
Yeah,
It's one of those
like
highlights of like you get the short little burst of like this is Michael said it when we were watching it. He was like, you feel the difference between these students and the actual
yeah,
like huntsmen and huntresses.
yes, very much so.
And then even
Uh,
more so when Ironwood just single-handedly kills a giant Ursa.
that okay. Ironwood, I wasn't sure on him because I was just like, I can't tell if you're like evil but with good intentions, or if you're just not really going about it the right way. And then that happened, I was just like, no, I fucking love Ironwood. Okay,
He
this is sick.
he's an incredibly cool and based character who has a lot of problems, which is
Yes.
which is a couple of characters in the show. In that, you know, the way they go about things probably isn't the right way.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
I mean, big
I
highlight
also
fight. I was gonna say big highlight fight is the group fight at the end of Volume 3.
I was that one, and also I really enjoy the group fight at the end of volume two as well.
Yeah,
With the train where we meet Velvet's team.
yep.
Because I love Coco. She's wonderful.
Great,
Coco's great.
and so is Velvet. I love
Yeah.
Velvet's.
Like honestly, all of Velvet's team is sick as hell.
Yeah, they're really cool. I wish we got more with. I mean, I'm not gonna remember his name. Sword Boy.
Yeah.
It's a Y. That's all I know. But I mean, he's sick as hell, and like the really big sword, like wind up swing stuff they do with him is really cool. And then he gets absolutely bodied by Mercury and
Yeah.
Emerald. And then you have
Which is unfortunate.
yeah, and then you have Fox, who is like really cool because the implication is that like he's probably blind based on how like his eyes are drawn. They just don't. You just never get. We just really don't get a lot with him. He does some cool shit here and there, but you don't get to. He doesn't get his moment to shine, which is fine. I mean, you have so many characters as is.
We've got a lot of characters, yeah.
But I was gonna say Velvet's weapon is.
It's so cool.
Don't ask me if it has to do with her semblance. I don't know, but it's cool as hell, and I don't.
It's sick.
And it's such a nice. It's a nice send off to the volume in a positive way, because you're not gonna get that elsewhere in that episode.
Oh god, no, that episode just stabs you everywhere
Yeah.
else. But yeah, no, I mean,
The
the fights are all really good,
the
honestly.
the fight on the airship with Torchwick also, because
Yes.
I'll never not love just Torchwick picking up his cane and beating the shit out of Ruby with it.
Yeah.
It's such a calm down, dude. It's anticlimactic where it ends. And I know you and I have talked about like why that may have been, and like there's a lot of fan theories at this time that like is Torchwick really dead? It's such an odd way to get him out, but knowing that Monty knowing that like he's kind of like he's like one of Monty's favorite characters, and that it might be hard to work him into exactly, and they don't want to do anything wrong with him. I get it.
Mm.
Um,
Also, like, honestly, I didn't mind him leaving the story like that.
yeah.
I thought it was a very good way to do it because of
Mhm.
how, like, I didn't mind it being anticlimactic because of how they've done the story so far.
Yeah.
And it really works just because of the fact that, like, I really enjoy it where in shows and media as a whole, there's a character who is definitely an antagonist, but they're not the main villain,
Yeah.
but they think they are,
and
and they get bodied,
oh
and it's
boy.
great.
Oh boy, does Torchwick think I mean, he obviously knows there's people above him at the top who he can't go against, but boy, does he love to act the part as the head of the group.
Yeah,
And it's incredible the whole way through.
Torchwick's like an incredible character. He's such a
Yeah.
good villain, just because he very much has like handsome Jack energy to him,
Mm-hmm.
and it's great.
What so I mean, I'll ask, what are the things you're most excited to get into as we move past volume 3?
So I'm excited to see more of the world as a whole. Like, we've talked about the world,
Mm-hmm.
but we haven't been anywhere really outside of Vale and that one bit where they did the train section, but like that was
Yeah.
just barely outside of Vale.
And for it's with that part's actually really that set piece is really cool, and I love that
It
episode.
it is. It's really good. But I'm excited to see more. I want to see like what Mithril's like,
Vacuo,
what Vacuo's like, things like that.
Atlas, and Menagerie are the
Atlas.
other two we have.
Yeah.
No, the world's cool. I want to know what the
Yeah.
fuck that Dragon Island is.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm excited to see more of the world. I'm excited to see how with the shakeup of teams, how that ends up going about, and I'm excited to see how the characters who are currently out of commission come back into the story.
Yeah.
Because I'm certain they do, but I just want to know.
I'm excited for you to experience this new cast of antagonists, because I mean, oh boy, Salem's a wonderful. Just you got to see at the end of Volume 3. Her design's really cool. Her design's incredibly terrifying, and I love it. And the voice is perfect.
Yeah.
And they do that build up so well.
It's very cool how they do it, where it's just like, oh yeah, World of Remnant voice, like whatever. It's just some narrator person. Oh no! Oh,
Yep.
Oh no!
Yeah. And there's just a couple of characters that in my brain I'm like, oh, even if it's so far off, I can't wait for you to meet them, because some of them are Michael and I's like they're up there in like our favorite sets of characters. So in the future we're gonna get the goodest boy. And Michael and I love our goodest boy. No, I'm super excited to see some of the things that I know you've obviously like. There's a couple of things that I know you and I have both clocked, and we'll be like, we'll have to see what that's about. And obviously I know what some of those are about, and some of them maybe I don't yet. But it's such a cool world.
It really is. It like you can tell Monty put a lot of care and time into developing everything with this world.
Yeah. And I know we'll have to see how you feel about the fights, but I know you'll like the visual upgrade itself. Going into Volume 4, just because we've done enough stuff together. I know you'll be like, God, this looks so much nicer. It's like
Yeah.
you can't deny the fact that everything else is incredibly clean. And I've expressed I still think the fights look good, but we'll have to see with Volume 4. Um, I'm trying to I know some of the other things in my brain. Who's on your list for favorite characters at this point?
So
It's crazy that Pyrrha holds a spot for me, even to the like she's here for the 3, and then I'm like, well, you gotta like, she's like a bar now.
yeah, like
Same
Pyrrha's
with Penny.
incredible.
Same with I love Penny.
Penny's
Oh.
wonderful. I love Yang. John's just a good boy. We love him. It's hard picking a favorite character because all of them are so good.
Yeah.
No, I mean, in terms of like favorites, I mean, I would generally lean towards probably John or Yang.
Yeah.
But I mean, even going outside of that, like if I had to like sit down and think about it, I mean, like Emerald's honestly up there just because of the stuff she's such a well-written character.
So cool. I think Mercury's really cool too. I think those two, as like for being like big bad pawns, they're so neat. They're so interesting.
Good. They're really cool.
Thanks, yeah, because it helps that one of them's very low and tall. And I mean, I think it's really great because we did the one Sparkle quiz where it was like first person of color introduced in RWBY. And it's like, oh yeah, it is Emerald.
It's Emerald.
I think it's incredible that she fucking rocks. That you get introduced to her and she like rules.
Yeah, she's incredible.
Her design's great. I love her fucking design. It's so cool.
Her design's so good. And then the second one that we get to is also, I want more of him. I forget his name right now, but Trumpet Man.
Oh, Flint Cole.
Yeah, Flint Cole. Flint Cole is wonderful. I love him so much.
He's an Atlas boy, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm excited because like his power, like his semblance is really cool. How he fights is awesome. Yeah. Like he's just an enjoyable character. I'm like a lot of the characters we get introduced to in season 3 or volume 3. I keep saying season. I know it's volume. It's just like
everyone knows what you mean.
But like a lot of the characters that we get introduced to in volume 3 are incredible, just in design, how they are as characters, like what they do in fights. It's really cool what we end up getting.
A character I do want to talk about is Weiss, because you, coming from Ice Queendom, have a little extra Weiss knowledge. And what I'll say is, as much as I don't dislike anything Ice Queendom does with Weiss, I like the slow build to Weiss's problems. I think it adds a lot to her, and I think it lets you have really cool moments, like with Flint, where you have characters who have an issue with the Schnee name, and you have to see how Weiss, comes about dealing with that.
Yeah, like, that's the thing that after watching original RWBY, I don't really like about Ice Queendom, is the fact that in original RWBY, she's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place where she is part of her family and she loves her family, but she also recognizes the fucked up shit they do and doesn't want to continue that.
Yeah.
But she has to kind of defend herself from saying, hey, I'm not my father, but I am part of the Schnee family. I really like how they do that. And then Ice Queendom goes, no, I'm a Schnee. I must defend the Schnee name.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it's not good. It's like, don't get me wrong, I get it because it's part of the whole Dreamscape thing. But it's like, it's rough because it doesn't get you the same amount of character development that you get in original.
Yeah, and when you and I have talked about this, the stuff in a similar fashion, the slow build of Weiss and Blake is so much more engaging in the original than we wound up getting in Ice Queendom, because you don't have to do, here's this big problem they have into Dreamscape. You instead get to say, these two are butting heads now. There's a little bit of acceptance. And though you're not necessarily verbalizing how that Weiss and Blake's dynamic are. You're seeing Weiss do things that show you how she's starting to get a little more
Yeah,
accommodating and kind of break the worst character elements of her.
yeah. Like it's really apparent in like volume two where there is that scene of Blake is like kind of losing her
Mm-hmm.
shit because of all the White Fang stuff going on, and White looks at her and goes, "You need to calm down. We're going to handle this.
Yeah.
You're my friend. I care about you." Like
There.
it's very like it's nice to see like that progression as it
Mm-hmm.
comes naturally.
What I will say to you is that at this point in the show, we're getting to the point where fan base thoughts on the main four girls are pretty set in stone. Most people like Ruby, most people like Yang. You either like or you don't like Weiss. It's kind of like she's either worked her way up for you or you don't like any of her shit. Um, and Blake's kind of this. Blake exists. For
She's
a lot of
kind of
fans
there.
where they want more from her, and then the next couple volumes are really the make or break for fans on whether they wind up liking Blake or not. I'm
Yeah.
a fan of Blake. I like the full main cast. I think they're all great. I don't really have too many issues with them, but I'm excited to see what you'll think as we go through that. Um, there's a character we haven't really talked about, Ozpin.
Okay. So there's a funny thing about Ozpin with me is that so when we first started watching Ice Queendom, Ozpin comes on screen, and my immediate reaction was, "This motherfucker's
I
evil."
think I bursted out laughing.
You
I think I
did.
was like
You
that.
really
I was like
did.
that killed me, dude. And you don't even know why.
Because when he shows up, he is the epitome of anime evil dude that is trying to look like a good guy. He really does. And then, like, as we've gone along with watching original RWBY, I've just been like, Ozpin seems like the kind of character that is. He has good intentions, and I know he means well. And I can't fault him for any of the things that he's done, but I don't know for sure still if he's got like if his interests are leaning towards his students or the world,
Mm-hmm.
because that is a notable big thing,
Yeah.
and I can't tell which one he leans more towards right now.
I mean, the choice to go, Pyrrha, you might not exist after this.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of really interesting things with Oz as a character, in these first three volumes that like I found really interesting, and I still do even rewatching it. And one of
Mhm.
those is how adamant he is from Pyrrha that he has to hear her say she's okay with it.
Yeah.
Because it is both, it's both like it has kind of a reassurance thing where you're like, well, I'm glad he isn't just gonna go do this,
Yeah.
but it also comes off really ominous in the moment where you're like, I don't I don't like
Like,
that, Oz.
yeah,
Like it
it's one
doesn't
of
make
those
me
things.
feel good.
Yeah, it's like he knows what he's doing, but he also like
Yeah.
he knows that this has to be done, but he doesn't want to do it.
Mhm.
But like at the same time, he's just like, I'm kind of leaning towards you doing it because we need this to
Kind of
happen.
need you to do it. Somehow I don't have anybody else. Which
Yeah.
I will say it does. I think one of the small critiques I can give early RWBY is that it does feel like your web of really well renowned and powerful huntsmen and huntresses is kind of small. Like
Yeah.
you get the school staff, and you get Winter, and you
Bro.
get Ironwood and Crow, and then you have the professors, and like and then you have like legends of people, and you don't get to see
Yeah.
a lot of other like big well-known name huntsmen, which is at times makes it be like, You telling me that the only person eligible who you really think can do this out of all the female huntresses you have is Pyrrha? I mean, she
Yeah,
rocks. She's incredible. She's above the bar. She fucking soloed Carden's team in that one sparring match. And it's so
yeah,
cool.
it
But
is.
like, I don't know. We really don't have anybody else. Uh-oh. Uh, but no, it's. I mean, it start. They do a real. They do. I think the one element they do well to kind of minimize that feeling is when Crow's talking to Ruby and Yang, and he's regaling them of a story of his last mission. He's like, I was out and about, went into this tavern, and then before he starts fawning over the tavern girl, he talks about how like you have all these huntsmen and huntresses there, and some of them are there just to do whatever jobs they can pick up and help, but some of them are there to do less reputable stuff. Like
Yeah,
you kind of like once you graduate, they're so on their own that you're gonna have people who are gonna make decisions about, not necessarily being great people. And I think that's a good thing to add to the world there because you don't really
yeah,
know how it works out there.
yeah. It's like it's not like there's a like here's the grand like hunter job
Yeah,
board thing. It's like you pick up jobs and do whatever you want to do, and you're just licensed as a hunter,
yeah,
and that's about it. It it really lends itself a lot to Hunter x Hunter,
yeah.
funnily enough. But also the thing that I thought of a lot when that whole thing was happening was one of my favorite video games of all time is Fable. And Fable
Ah,
does that thing too, where it's just like, hey, we're the Heroes Guild. And hero does not mean champion of the people.
yeah,
It means you are a you have this title
yeah.
that means you go off and do hero things.
Mm-hmm.
And that can mean you either help all the people that you can go like
Yeah,
murder and pillage, whatever you want to do, but like we're just training you. That's all we're doing.
yeah. In the same way the show occasionally does for me, half moments where I'm like, yeah, I watched Fairy Tale. I kind of get some of this structure here. We got the good. We got guilds that are generally good people. We got guilds that are the worst people. We got guilds who are like the in between. A lot less fan service in this than there is in Fairy Tale, but that's besides the point. No, but I mean, yeah, I've always said, I think one of the draws to RWBY for me is that I look at what RWBY does and how its characters and worlds are created and structured, and I always describe it as this is what you would get if the person who was right, and this is not a knockout Monty. I mean this in a good way, I promise. But it's what you would get if the person who started creating a world when they were in middle school or high school, and when this is an easy way for me to like tie something to a character, like I always joke about like this character has this element or this character is this zodiac sign. Like you do
Mhm.
like when you're young and you're doing world creation, you do a lot of that where you're like there's a reason why the Full Metal Alchemist, and Seven Deadly Sins focus on the seven sins is a really like is a
It's a
common way to
everyone can
ascribe
understand it
characters.
immediately.
Yeah.
Like you
Uh,
know exactly what that character's about when you know what they
And
are.
RWBY screams that everywhere. Characters are
Oh yeah.
colors, characters are fairy tales, characters' weapons are multiple. Like it's you have at least 6 different ways to remember the set of characters. Do you remember them by their semblances? Do you remember them by their symbol? Do you remember them by their team name, by their color, by their like by their fairy tale they're based off of? Like you have all this wide range of, you know, fantasy-esque things to pull from or kind of tropish, attributions, but Monty does this incredible job of having
Feels
them be parts of the
fresh.
characters and then having the characters also not be one-dimensional.
Yeah, like it feels very fresh of
Yeah.
just like, yeah, don't like we know that they're based off of this,
Yeah.
but like that's not them. It's just a like idea of them.
Yeah, like
Like
Ruby is very clearly Little Red Riding Hood inspired, but I
mhm,
mean, you like she doesn't have a lot of, like, she doesn't have a little grandmother she goes running off to, like, she doesn't have a
Yeah,
lot of, she isn't gullible like the character. Ruby is honestly one of the smarter characters in the show,
yeah,
which is such a
she
nice pro
is.
tag thing to have, is that
It really is.
everybody's having a good time at the dance and she's like, what's going on over there?
Yeah,
I'm gonna go check it out. It's like she, like, you and I talked about this. She solves the through line, like, plan of the bad guys just a second before she's too late. Like,
yeah,
if like stars aligned, she could have broke the whole thing open. It's just
and yeah, like yeah, it's literally the only reason why she doesn't end up fixing things is because Mercury's there.
yeah,
That's the only reason.
he keeps her occupied just long
Just
enough.
long enough. Because
Uh,
if she had like if that hadn't like if he hadn't have been there, she would have gotten there in time, and we wouldn't
yep.
have had the two major deaths that we do.
Well, I might still have had one, but
It's like one and a half.
Penny might have been okay. Uh, I mean, elephant in the room, wyvern on the tower, however you want to describe it.
Yeah,
Silver eyes.
yeah. I'm still trying to figure that one out.
I remember
like
you had so many. You had so many questions for me, and I'm like, I can't.
I figured it's something to do with the maidens, where I would imagine what probably ended up happening, and this is all speculation. You don't have to say a word on this,
Yep.
but I would imagine what happened was Ruby's mom was one of the maidens, because her name's fucking Summer. Like, kind of screams, yeah, she's probably one of the maidens. But I would imagine, because they do the One Piece. Oh, never mind. Can't say that. Can't say that because that's a spoiler for Sean. They do a thing where they're like, yeah, so the maiden power transfers to whoever is closest to them when that person dies.
Yeah.
So I would imagine it's something to do with Summer died probably for
is a woman ? They don't
Yeah,
seem very
question
sure on
mark.
that point, but
yeah. But I would imagine it's something to do with Summer was probably protecting Ruby from something and died, and Ruby got the maiden powers from her. Again, that is all speculation because we have no confirmation on that as of the end of Volume 3, but that's what I think.
I love the introduction of the maidens because it makes your brain go to all the possible pipelines of what this could wind up being. 4 seasons, 4 main characters, all female, and your brain immediately goes, who can be what? And like you have a pretty clear, like, well, Ruby could be Summer because her mom, like, Weiss is Winter because come on, she's Snow.
Yeah.
Like, and they just have to, and then it's like, but Summer fits so much better with like Yang, because like we don't always associate Summer with Ha. But you really only have Fall and Spring left, and neither of those feel like a Blake thing. But like your brain wants to assign it to them as like a possibility because you're like, there's 4 of them, there's 4 of those, they're all female. And in the same way, you have the characters that exist at this point where you're like, I know we have a Summer, I know we have a Winter, like in name, and Cinder's last name's Fall. Where's my spring? Someone bring me a spring. I need to find it. And then that completes the circle, baby. But it's just, there's so much. It's part of what made watching this show as it came out to some degree really fun for me, because I got to be like, I don't know how I feel about that fan theory. I'm like, I think you people are insane about a couple of things. And I thought, and for what it's worth, off stream we've talked about a couple. I generally gave Mason the rundown of all the ones that exist at this point in time that are like, semi-relevant. And some of them I think are cool, some of them I think are a little far-fetched, some of them are the entire spreadsheet of every RWBY ship known to man, and we just don't talk about it, except for Michael, who likes to stab me with information regarding it every once in a while.
Really funny.
It's the way. Oh,
I'm excited to get to the point where Michael can show me that spreadsheet and I can just laugh.
I know one of his favorites is 2 of his favorites are volume 7 are Volume 7 adjacent. Because the stuff that makes those funny all happens in Volume 7. But no,
Yeah.
I mean, for what it's worth, I understand why there's a large shipping community in RWBY. A lot of the characters get really close. It's also a show that makes sense to get popular with like a teen demographic. And if there's one thing teens who watch anime, weeb shit, and anything that has characters who are the same or opposite genders love to do, it's ship them. And it's not like there's nothing here. Like there are characters who have chemistry. Clearly John and Pyrrha are written to be like in love or falling in. Well, Pyrrha's definitely in love with John, and John is certainly falling for her once he gets his brain together. Dumb little man he is.
Yes.
I love watching you watch this show, and just every time John does something Weiss adjacent, you're like, John, she's right there. Pyrrha's right there in front of you. And it's horrible because the whole cast knows. Everybody's like, why are you got the hottest and strongest girl in the place, John. All you gotta do is open your eyes. And he does.
Right.
Maybe
and
a little.
He does.
Maybe a little. Well, I mean, I think he does at the appropriate time in the story. I think he starts like the dance is such a good moment for them. And then you get the scene where they get to talk about Pyrrha not knowing what she should do in Destiny. And then you just kind of unfortunately she gets caught up in the plot, and he can't do anything until the end. And then even then he can't. I love him.
God, I love their dynamic so much, just because of like there's so many like some of my favorite moments from volumes 1 through 3 are just John and Pyrrha moments. Like the thing on the rooftop where he's like, Pyrrha, I'm not that far gone. God, that is the funniest shit.
I think it is hard to find a line that has killed us more on watching it than that one.
It's so awful, but it's so funny.
I mean, I've talked to you about how much I love the scene where John sits Ren down for the boy talk in the room, and Ren's just like, John, can I put on some clothes? And John's like, no, Ren, I really need your help. And then Nora's just in the corner of the room, and it's so good.
It's just like he's like, Nora, I told you not to take the headphones off.
And it's such a good bit because you have that comedic element of it that's very John. And then Pyrrha comes in, is very upfront with him, and he goes out to go do his little I'm gonna ask Weiss to the dance bit, and then you're left with the very like serious, almost somber tone that kind of follows Pyrrha the whole 3 volumes, whether you're aware of it or not. Where Nora's like, girl, you gotta be more honest with yourself too. What are you doing here? You gotta, and it's I love the way the two of them as characters coexist together in the setting. It's so nice. It's so well done.
It's so good. And also that brings me to another point too of I really enjoy that, like, while we do have our like comic relief characters, that's not all they are.
Yeah.
Like Nora is definitely like technically comic relief because she's like the best way I can describe her is she's fucking Pascal from Tales of Grace.
Yes,
that's exactly what she is. But also, she has those moments where she's like, "No, I'm gonna be an actual friend and like a person, and I'm gonna talk to my friends and explain things to them, and stuff like that." Or like Oobleck. Oobleck is a comic relief character and a half, but also he gets his moment to shine at the end of Volume 2, where he's fucking incredible.
And I think his interrogation of the girls, except for Ruby, is such a well done bit. And the fact that they don't have Oobleck spell it out for them. They let the girls sit by the campfire and work through it and be like, "Why didn't he ask Ruby? And we know why he didn't ask Ruby." And it's really nice to see all of them have, like, it really is, all of them identify their core tropish goal they have, and they go, but it's not that simple. It's not what I want. Like, I want more than that. I didn't mean it like that. And it adds a level of depth that whether we get to go into it fully yet, it gets you excited for maybe what they're all gonna do.
Yeah, because it allows you to, like, you have your base idea of why you want to do this thing, but Oobleck then kind of throws the wrench into that of going, But is that the real reason, and is that a good reason?
Yeah, and it's
And
simple.
all of the and every single one of them goes, huh? No.
And Ruby's is quite simple. She always wanted to be a hero. She wants
Mhm.
to be a hero, and she wants to do it to help people and because the world needs them. She doesn't
Yeah.
like there's no detracting from it, and like if it was someone who wasn't as into it as Ruby is, that motivation might be a problem. Like you might have to
Mhm.
like talk to them, but Oobleck can clearly tell in that moment she's fine. She doesn't
Yeah.
need I mean, of course, I mean that's what episodes have one of my favorite bits, which is Ruby sneaking Zwei onto the plane, and then him popping out of the bag, and Oobleck going, "Ruby, did you bring a dog on a scouting mission? Incredible!" And I just the payoff for that bit, I love Oobleck
It's
so
so
much.
good. Oobleck's such a wonderful character. Like,
Yeah,
I think the only like actual hunter that we've met that I'm not like in on yet is it's
Port,
Peter.
Port,
Yeah, Peter
and
Ford.
even then,
Yeah,
he's kind of like he has that slight element of cool, and everything
yeah.
about him like is supposed to be portrayed as like he's the guy who like exaggerates his stories. Like
He's Gaston.
there is nothing more about him that like hits that way than you seeing the fact that his weapon is a blunderbuss with an axe attached to
With
it.
an
It's
axe
not
on
an
the other
axe that
end.
turns into a blunderbuss. No,
It's just them literally just fucking jammed together. It's great.
but like but yeah, he definitely has some of like the least depth to him, the least like and it's just that he is very bombastic, and it's like but his conversation with Weiss is really nice, and we get that in both this version and Ice Queendom, which was nice. Um,
It was very nice, honestly, for Ice Queendom. It was
yeah.
good to have that.
It's one of the things they adapt almost to a T perfectly, and it's good because
Yeah,
that's a really important moment. Is Ruby's conversation with
exactly.
Oz and Weiss's with Port. As weird as it is to say that sentence.
Yeah,
Um,
like you would not expect Weiss to have that conversation with Port, but like
yeah.
it works really well.
One of, I mean, I would say just because we have not talked about it yet, soundtrack.
God, the music in this show is fucking incredible. Like I knew that coming into it
Yeah.
because I had my Spotify weekly like a couple years ago now had gotten some of those songs. It was one from season 3, which was uh I'm the One,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's one from volume 4 where it's like Burn It Away or something like that. I
Yep.
don't remember. Um but both of I have listened to those tracks on repeat so much because they are bangers.
Yeah.
And just every single song, every last one, except for maybe I had a little bit of an issue with Volume Two's opening, but it's
Yeah.
just because of how it starts. It's really weird because it doesn't like the lyrics don't match the tempo of the song.
Yeah.
Like the tempo of the lyrics don't match the tempo of the song at first, and then it gets fine. But that was the only one where I was like, But like the rest of them, every single track, absolute banger.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you're like, again, it's that element that I talked about where it's like it's the dream to be a creator and to go and to have someone go, what do you want your OST and like the openings for when you get to create your show to be, and you just go, I want it to be insane. I want it to be, you aren't ready for the style of like some of the rock. Like I want ballads. I want like they do the whole spectrum of songs, really.
Yes.
Like the fact that you get to the Team Funky fight and you're like, oh, this is just jazz. Okay, I get
Yeah,
it. Like
and it slaps.
and then you have traditional like general like fantasy show music too that exists as well. It's not always that, but there is something about both the Nevermore fight and the group fight at the end of Volume 3, where Velvet uses her weapon. That
Yeah.
those songs are so good. And the way, especially the Velvet fight, the song lines up with the way she fights.
With
Like
yeah.
especially the point where she pulls out Penny's weapons is it
It's
hurts
so
me in the
good.
right way every time I watch it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I love that. And I would say that I don't think that gets worse. I think that is a part that stays consistent is the OST because they
We
keep
love
the
that.
same people on and even get some
Good.
new faces later.
Oh.
The Caleb Hines song is so good.
Oh, I didn't know Caleb Pine did stuff for
Yeah,
that.
it's a Torchwick fight song.
Oh, hell
It's really good. I love it. I think it's called Hero. It's a really
yeah.
good
Okay.
song. But yeah, anything else you got?
I mean, not really. I'm excited to watch more. I've really enjoyed my time watching the first 3 volumes, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here because we have a very hard right turn of how this show is going to where we're going now.
Sorry, I
You
hadn't looked
just
I hadn't
you
looked at
just saw what
chat.
Michael said.
Yeah, I hadn't looked at chat and I just saw it and of course yeah, it stabs me. I don't like it. I wish he didn't type it. But no. No,
Been waiting for you to see it.
I'm super excited to keep going through it because I think I mean I've told Mason my favorite moment, my favorite fight, and my favorite episode might technically be 2 all haven't happened yet. And that's like
Mhm.
and I love that fact because they're so to me they stand out so much. And
Yeah.
I'll let you know we're close to my favorite moment in all of RWBY.
Okay.
It's oh, I love it. Michael knows what they all are because I've talked about them. There
Mm.
are a couple of that fight might be debatable. Is that's the hard thing. I really like a
Yeah.
certain fight, but then Michael and I talk all the time, and there's a fight that is, in my opinion, I love the choreography for it, and
Okay.
that velvet fight with the group fight, they're always whole. It's just the show's
It's
just
so good.
it's good. I'm excited to see what you think. And we'll certainly be back. I haven't decided yet if we're gonna do end of 5 or if we're just gonna do end of 6.
Mm.
Because if we do 6, then when 9 comes out, we can do 7 to 9, and it's batches of
Yeah.
3s, which is nice. But there's an argument that the show has such a that there is kind of another shift after from volume 5 to 6 where you're like this would be a place to like 4 and 5 very much are kind of a package deal together.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's we'll have to see how you're feeling. I don't think there's any wrong way to do it. It's just a matter of content. Um,
Yeah.
but no, I'm super excited for it. I will say, thanks everybody for coming in, tuning out. I know the guys. I know in the background we're talking in the group chat about when we're gonna do the picking shows. We can't just go right into it from this because I have to do a little bit of overlay stuff.
Yep. Layout work.
Yeah, I have to get the layout just a little bit changed up slightly.
Mm.
But then we can do it. I also want to eat something. Because I kind
Also
of
should do
just
that.
woke up and do want to eat. I also need to shower because I'm going camping
Yeah.
tomorrow, and I would like to shower before I do that.
Yeah.
So we'll work through that. But again, normally, well, let's do the rundown. We have a couple of fun things coming up. Firstly, in the in between time period of waiting for episodes of the new season of anime to come out. Right now, we're in fall. And some of the shows already have an episode or two, but some of the ones we might pick still need some time to build up. We obviously won't know the exacts till the night. But in the in between, yeah, I figured he's not. But in the in between, we like to do a little series we called "How Good Is." I'll never not love it. To which each of us had a year ago picked a show that we had a little bit of restriction on, where we said should probably be about 12, 13 episodes
13.
at most for the first one. And we would all sit down and watch the stuff. I don't know if we planned to watch everything together, but that's how I think maybe outside of Villainess, that's how or did we watch Villainess together too? I don't remember.
We watched Villainess together.
Yeah, so we've watched all of them together.
Yes.
I don't know if that was always the intention, but that's
I
what
think
it
it
wound up
was.
being. Yeah.
I think it was because we were just like, let's all watch this together and get our thoughts as we're watching it.
And the idea for How Good is that it's something that not all of us have seen, but at least one of us has seen parts of.
Yeah.
It's kind of the, like, you have to have a little bit of, like, you have to have a good reason to pick it, is kind of the idea.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, we might, open that restriction up a little bit.
Mm.
But, John picked Villainess, Mason picked Odd Taxi, Michael picked Izukin, and I've picked Terror and Resonance, and we are at the end of that set of 4 where we have to watch Terror and Resonance. So hopefully in the next week or two we'll be sitting down to watch that, and we'll do a episode where we talk about it. We talk about how we feel. We talk about I'm so excited just to talk about that show. I don't get the opportunity to do that a lot because it's difficult to talk about that show if you want people to watch it. And I'm super hyped for that. But after that, we'll be going into the fall season, where we'll be live once a week. Usually, typically, there might be a little bit of overlap. Sometimes we're live on Monday of one week and the Friday of that same week, just because of scheduling. But normally, again, we'll have 12 shows. They'll each usually have at minimum 2, at maximum 3 episodes out that we watch through. It's a lot of anime to start, and then we'll vote off what we all vote on what we think the worst shows are. The show with the most votes goes off. There's a tie. We put it on the Wheel of Doom, and we just see what fate decrees. It's a real fun time. It's a great way to get into the new stuff coming out in the seasons. Also just to kind of maybe watch stuff you wouldn't normally watch, see some bad shows you wouldn't normally have to watch those bad shows for longer than you expect because somehow they exist still. Somehow it didn't piss enough people off, or something was so bad that it let another show survive. There are plenty of examples of that. I'm a prime candidate of someone who gets to let their shows stay alive longer than they probably should. It's real fun.
I generally am too. Like,
You picked good.
I know, but I also made Rose King last.
That's true. Well, I liked it. That was your benefit, was that we had the 50-50 split on it. We haven't. I think in our podcast history with the 4 of us, you, me, Michael, John, I don't think we've had a season. No, girlfriend. I was gonna say I don't think we've had a show where it felt like the rest of the podcast was holding someone hostage, but girlfriend felt like that for me. I had to, that was my uphill where I was like, why do you all like this show? Please save me. But I mean, we haven't, since you weren't here for Back Arrow, but boy, was that fun.
Oh, no, I heard about Back Arrow. I heard John
still hear
complaining about that
Arrow
show all the time.
I think you would unironically get a kick out of Back Arrow.
Fair.
It's a mecha. It's a sci-fi western mecha.
There's a wall.
It has an opening by Lisa.
I know. I remember I was sitting down watching shows with John at one point, and I popped in as he was starting episode 6 of Back Arrow or something. So I had no idea what was going on. So the start of the episode happens, and I'm just like, so what's this show about? He's like, you don't need to know. You don't. And then the opening by Lisa starts happening. I'm like, John, why the fuck did you not tell me this? He's like, because it doesn't matter. This show's bad.
And it stayed to top 5.
Yeah.
I'm too powerful. No, but if you're new, if you're finding the VOD, if you tuned in live, which thanks to everybody who did, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Click, activate notifications. We don't do videos every day, so it's not gonna flood your inbox, but it will let you know when we're gonna be live, because we're gonna be on live on YouTube from here on out. This worked swimmingly. I can't wait to see how the VOD looks and and how nice it is. But things seem to be going good. But no, we'll be back later tonight. If I figure out a time, I'll schedule that stream. So that people who do follow will know. And yeah, I mean, we always appreciate, sharing around everything as we go. I mean, I think eventually the big goal of all this for me is have a decent sized community that maybe even the Discord server opens up for people. As a, hey, hang around and talk about anime kind of thing. But we aren't there yet. And that's all that. But thank you guys for coming out. Lesson of this little review is Volume 1 to 3 of RWBY's good. If you can get past the animation a little bit, it's real good. And if you need to watch the first 6 episodes of Ice Queendom to kind of get your feet in the water and then go out, but if I like things here, but everyone's saying that it's even better in the original, I guess I'll go check out the original. That hour-long video that has it all compiled is really nice because it's less intimidating than like very short blurbs. It's a lot easier
Yeah.
to tune out of a very short list of blurbs.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we'll be back later. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be tuning out. Anything you want to say, Mason?
No, just come check us out for how good it is and next season, because we got some. I can tell this upcoming season we're gonna have some really good shows on there. It's gonna be a very interesting season, I think, because I think we're gonna have a lot of close calls this season.
I mean, guys, Chainsaw Man, it's gonna be
Chainsaw
there.
Man.
We can tell you it's gonna be there.
I know for a fact that, and at the very least, the new Gundam anime are gonna be on there.
And we all talk about it, so I would imagine it's gonna get picked. But everyone on this podcast knows Blue Lock's supposed to be amazing, and all of us are kind of like, do I have to pick the sports show? Is someone else going to pick the sports show? It's gonna be good. Why am I so hesitant to pick the sports show?
Exactly. Like,
the last soccer show did well on the podcast. It's not even like we're in a bad like sports shows have been doing well.
Yeah. Like comedy did well. That only got voted out like 5, I think.
So long as the show doesn't poorly handle the concept of suicide, the sports show tends to be good. It's insane that that's 2 shows we watched on this and 2.43. It's insane that it's 2 now. We've had 2, but that's besides the point. But yeah, come on out for those.